The Chesapeake Bay has supported American watermen for over 3 centuries. Crab cakes, fried oysters, and soft-shell crabs are regional delicacies that have become iconic symbols of the Chesapeake Bay. Just as New Yorkers prize their pizza, or Tennesseans their barbecue, residents of D.C. and Baltimore love their Chesapeake Bay seafood.
Barefoot in Baltimore, heel and toe with you. When night comes, we can go walking on the shores of Chesapeake Bay. A silence.
The Chesapeake Bay used to supply 3/4 of the country's oysters, but today it supplies barely 1%, and the crab harvests of the last few years were the worst in decades. People disagree as to why the bay's crabs and oysters are dying, but the effects of this decline are blatant. Crisfield, Maryland is a sleepy waterfront town that was once a bustling center of the Chesapeake Bay seafood industry. The southern Maryland town used to be nothing more than marshland until it became a major port and processing center for Chesapeake Bay seafood. They built a port and brought in a railroad, and pretty soon investors were buying marsh lots and filling them up with oyster shells. Morris Tawes is a 93-year-old native of Crisfield, Maryland. He says most of modern-day Crisfield was built on oyster shells. He once served as a general in World War II, and his family once owned an oyster boat supply store in Crisfield. Now, the store is closed, and Tawes spends his days renting the store's vacant parking spaces to tourists.
There used to be 60 some seafood dealers here. Now there's only about 6.
So you think
It was a seafood capital of the world, this was. Tourists is the biggest thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have people come here from Texas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Georgia, all over. Of course, the computers have done that. They've been able to advertise. On tiles and on Smith Island 10 years ago, some man came there and put all this stuff on the computer.
The boat ride from Crisfield to Smith Island is only about 30 minutes, yet it feels like another country, if not another time. The island was settled in the 1600s, and much of its colonial charm remains. Many of the islanders are direct descendants of the founders of the island. Last names echo the names of streets and neighborhoods, and the islanders talk in their own distinct dialect. There is no mayor, there's no police, and all the vehicles, mostly golf carts, bikes, and boats, are considered farm equipment. The few cars that are on the island don't need to be registered, and their drivers don't have to have a license. One islander says there's no use for a newspaper because it only takes about an hour or so for any news to spread across the Watermen CB radios. Jackie Cunningham recently bought a house on Smith Island. She lives in New Jersey but is considering moving to the island permanently. She brought some friends down from New Jersey to see why she thinks the island is so special.
It's almost a time warp. So you don't have all that rushing around and worrying and oh golly, you just come here, you're relaxed, no phones, no televisions, no nothing.
It's like going back in time.
Yeah, truly lovely
the way
people.
Things should be.
Yep, truly lovely people.
Neighbors are neighbors, and
they share,
they welcome you. It's a wonderful place.
At 81, Waverly Evans is the oldest boat captain on Smith Island, as well as an active Smith Island waterman. He's been on the island his whole life. The house he grew up in had to be moved because of erosion and rising water levels. He says they used barges to pull the house over big logs till it was safe from the erosion. Today he lives in a small but colorful shack that he painted himself. Evans says last year was the worst year ever for crabbing hard-shell blue crabs on Smith Island, until this year, which he says was even worse. He says it's been so bad that a lot of the watermen have left the island to look for work on tugboats and ocean liners. Evans says that while watermen are often blamed for overcrabbing the bay, he doesn't think it's the case on Smith Island.
We used to have here on the whole island, I don't know what to say, 50, 75 or 100 guys out every day, crabbing and scraping and potting, you know. Today we've got less than, I doubt if it's 25. I doubt if it's 25 on the whole island that's crabbing. So you can't say we're over crabbing it.
Yeah, maybe it's in and out of it now.
Many fear it's not just the sea life that's dying out. Some say the Chesapeake Bay watermen and their way of life is also dying, and with it, we're losing a piece of our national heritage. The health of the Chesapeake Bay has been an issue for years. The Environmental Protection Agency began a Chesapeake Bay restoration project in 1983, but a number of factors including suburban development, increased farming, increased air pollution, waste management, and deforestation have outpaced the restoration project. Gerald Weingrad authored legislation to protect the Chesapeake Bay during his tenure as chairman of the Senate Environmental Committee. Now he teaches at the University of Maryland and has dedicated much of his work to conserving the bay. Weingrad says fertilizers and other nutrient runoffs from agricultural production and urban developments are the biggest polluters of the bay.
The bay is in trouble. Yes, there are solutions there. Yes, there's a comprehensive game plan, but so far it's not working as well because of all of these external factors. Our blue crab fishery is on the precipice of probably a biological collapse because of bay grasses disappearing.
Adam Wickline works for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Wickline says he tries to make a link between what people do in the watershed and how it affects the watermen and the environment.
Everything is in decline. It's not like it once was. But it's also really neat because this is one of the cleanest areas of the bay. And there's still a lot living here. And that's another one of the messages to the students is, you know, there's still something worth saving because the perception is the bay is dirty.
Roland Bradshaw is the president of the Watermen's Association on Smith Island, but to islanders, he's simply pal. Bradshaw has been working on the water for over 50 years, since he was about 5 years old. He says Smith Island couldn't exist without the water business.
We're not trying to hurt the bay, we're just trying to, if anything, we're trying to help it, Well, I think this bay needs to be harvested. That's what it's put here for. The crabs was put here, that and the oysters and the fish was put here to harvest. And I think, it needs to be done. I believe when the last waterman's gone from this bay is when the bay starts dying. I really do. I believe that at the bottom of my heart. I really believe it. Because, see, you harvest it. You keep the, bottom clean when you're oystering. You keep it cold. You keep the crabs fed because all these people with crab pot, and they put fish in their baits, in their pots. And the crabs come to eat that fish. The fish makes the crab healthy, And I believe it needs it. I believe it needs the watermen. We need it. They need us.
Bradshaw says that no matter what happens, that as long as he can, he's going to get up before dawn and go tend to his crab pots. In order to supplement his income, Waverly Evans makes art. He paints all the bay's lighthouses and uses driftwood and trash to make wooden fishermen and plastic seagulls. His art is displayed in the dry crab bins where he used to keep his softshell crabs. Yet even Waverly sees hope.
What do you think? You think it is going to get better? Or?
Yeah, it should. There's a lot of little crab on the bottom now, so that's a good sign for another year or so.